Dr. Jazz.
Man, thanks for finding the time. Appreciate it. I know
Of
you're
course, my
probably super
pleasure.
busy. And greetings from Maribor. I don't know if you. I was just trying to think today. Bill Evans played here in 1997 or six, and I know Victor Bailey was on bass and Adam was on guitar, but I don't know whether it was you or Jim Beard on keyboards.
No, that I think that would have been me.
It was you then. Okay, so then you
Yeah,
were in
that
my
would have been
hometown.
me.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
As a very long. Yeah, it's like shit, 30 years almost. Oh man.
Where
Okay.
was the venue?
It was like a club, really cool venue, jazz club, like in a basement. Kind of, you went like on
Oh,
steep steps.
and what was the name of the venue? Do you remember?
Satchmo,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Mortimer. You remember that? It was like
yeah,
the place was packed, man. It's like it was
yeah.
such a cool gig. But I didn't know whether it was you, like I said, or
I'm
Jim. So that
pretty sure it was
must have been
me
you. Yeah,
because I played a lot with Bill back then.
yeah, yeah. That's why. Yeah,
Uh,
that's how I found out about you the first time. That Starfish and album. And
oh right, wow, crazy,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. But I want to start this talk first with I listened today to Trio Rimetos, and I love that album, man. You and
Oh, thank you so much.
Johan and Joe. I mean, you and Johan go way back, obviously. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
have you been preparing something new as a band leader? Like,
Um, I've been focused on my band Fork.
yeah.
Um, and I'm working on a project right now with Theo Blechman that we're going to record in Amsterdam.
Oh, beautiful.
Um, Actually, in this amazing venue called Orgelpark, which is
Oh, that one I don't know.
it's a church that a philanthropist bought and has a pipe organ, and then they added. I'm really oversimplifying, but they added three other major historic style pipe organs and
Wow.
other organs, and it's this amazing art space.
Wow. Okay.
So we had a small commission, and we're preparing original music for that. I also have the intention of recording a quartet record here at my house because I've been growing my studio. In fact, I have a new piano that's coming in. I
Mm.
love this piano, but I have a larger piano coming in, and my band Fork recorded everything here, the last album. So
Oh,
that's
really?
how
Okay.
a lot of musicians are doing now,
Oh
recording.
man, you save up, yeah.
Yeah, so my friend's an acoustic designer and built this space, and so it works really well. Um, but yeah, I have ideas about things. But the Theo Bleckman project, which is Modes of Joy, is
It's just a duo, or like with a
no,
band?
no, no. It's with a great saxophonist from a Dutch saxophonist, Tineke Postma.
Oh yeah, sure. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and a great bassist, Mark Hanstra.
Oh, you know them.
Um,
Okay.
they're both Dutch, but Mark and I are friends, and we go back to 2019 when I was there working in Amsterdam.
Beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. So without drums, just like kind of,
No, no, no drums because that
yeah,
space
because the
doesn't.
church, yeah, kind of style.
Yeah, it doesn't really lend itself to
Yeah, yeah.
that. And this is much more about voices. And we will, there will be moments where we're all singing. I'm doing a lot more singing these days. Um,
Beautiful.
and then there'll be moments where we're playing in single lines and then using the instruments some and uh, very open and creative melody based work.
Oh, looking forward to that. I love Tio, man. I mean, he's
Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah,
such a talent, man, as a composer and singer, obviously, and everything. So
yeah,
yeah, beautiful.
yeah,
I mean, I know you worked with him in the past already, so it's nice
yeah,
you're
yeah,
continuing this story. Beautiful.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you the story of Fork. Like, I listened to the last album, Big Party, and it's so groovy, man. It's like, what was the beginning of that band? I know you started like 10 years already ago, right? But it's
Yeah,
still pretty
yeah.
active, actually. So
I had this other band called Rudder
yeah, I
with
love that group as well. Yeah, with Keith.
Chris Cheek and Keith Carlock and Tim LaFave.
Yeah.
And Rudder was nearing kind of the end of its, bands have periods and they have ways that they flow. And we had been playing the same music for a while, and it felt like there was a shift coming. Um, and that shift just meant that the band couldn't go on anymore because we weren't all in the same place, and the guys in the band were doing other things, and Keith Carlock especially was busy with other work that was coming his way at the time, large pop gigs and Steely Dan and
Steely
Sting
Dan,
and other
exactly.
things that he was doing at the time. And Tim and I were both doing other work, and we couldn't, between the four of us, we just couldn't find the time to commit to this band. And I would say that it felt like I was the person who was pushing hardest for the band to remain. And at the same time, Michael League had Snarky Puppy going before Snarky won any Grammys and before Snarky had achieved any major touring success. And Michael was just running the whole thing himself, and he was exhausted by it because the idea of doing that thing yourself
That's insane.
is
Yeah.
really tiring. And we both said, hey, we should make a little group that's easy with people who just want to play. And we said, okay. And it started there, and he said, I know this great drummer from Dallas, Jason Thomas. And I said, well, do we get guitar? Maybe we have a guitarist. And I said, well, Adam Rogers has been my friend for years. We played together with Bill and all this stuff. And Adam and I were living a block apart from each other. And so we made our first record with Adam, and we just started the band by trying things out at the 55 Bar, which, rest in peace, 55 Bar.
Oh man, yeah. Oh,
was a place where you could go in there and just, we had a relationship with a club owner, and we just say like, hey, we're going to give us a Tuesday, and go try some things with no sort of promise of what it is,
yeah, so it's a place, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was born out of that, and we did that a couple times, and we all liked it so much, we said, let's make a record. And then we were off to the races. And then eventually it became quite apparent that Adam could not make time to tour with that band, and we said, well, this can't happen. So enter Chris McQueen.
Okay.
Yeah, and then eventually, and Chris and I really hit it off, and we have such a similar mindset about sound and composing, and we're sort of each other's cheerleader. He's got a new record coming, by the way. He's making a solo record finally, and I can't wait.
Oh wow, beautiful, man. Okay.
I love his work so much, and I think it's going to be outstanding. But Chris and I hit it off, and then eventually, of course, with Snarky Puppy rising above it all and getting multiple Grammys and building a huge international following, Mike was too busy. And finally, I went to Mike and I said, Mike, you're going to have to let us sub your chair out, because Mike had no time. He was a little shocked by it at first, and then I think he was relieved.
Yeah. Can imagine.
And after subbing, then it was quickly apparent that he just couldn't do it anymore. So
yeah, he created this beast of
yeah,
that's like,
he created a very successful beast, and Mike has worked. He's worked super hard, almost harder than anybody else I know in this business, and he deserves all of it.
Yeah. And on the last record, then you changed like so many bass players, right? There's like
yeah, I mean, we did a record with Kevin Scott, the record 4, our 4th record, and then Kevin has become busy with Government Mule and some other Southern rock stuff, and I feel like he's pivoted a little bit that direction. And I knew that he wasn't going to be able to make everything, and I started thinking about this idea. I had a chat with the band, and this is the first time I'm publicly saying this, but I think people can understand this. We sort of shifted from Fork being a collective to being Fork being my responsibility. I still feel like it's a musical collective, but somebody has to steer the ship.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of the unwritten leader of Fork. And with that in mind, I wanted to deepen the bench, as they say in sports, and make it possible for people to understand that other musicians would come in. And we did a tour without Chris McQueen, with this great guitarist, Jordan Peters.
Yeah.
He did an outstanding job. And we've done now 2 tours with bassist Eli Menezes, and he's fantastic, really amazing mind. And so, yeah, it's but I want to still have the feeling of grooving and melodies and fun and,
Yeah, I saw some shorts on your channel, I think it was, or it's so beautiful to see you guys, like 40-second snippets of like really grooving, and it's so cool, man, to watch that. I always love those
Well,
moments in the studio.
music should be fun and it shouldn't be too
Yeah,
serious, you know?
yeah. It's tricky stuff rhythmically. Sometimes it's happening, and but everyone makes it so effortless. Like when I
Wow.
watch you guys, it's like come on, so easy. But it's not for a normal musician. They're like shit, man, we got to practice, I guess. Or
Wow.
but you make it effortless, at least to my ears. I don't know, and eyes actually.
Oh, well, thank you.
But Henry, I wanted to go back a little bit today with you. You know, you're so diverse in your playing, from the early fusion stuff to the trio you did with Aber and Johan, and it's like really to the pop stuff, which I want to touch later. But I didn't know much about that except David's projects, obviously. But then I saw, man, there's like Rod Stewart and George Michael and all these guys. I'm like, man, what? I didn't know that. But what got you excited for jazz, actually? Like, did you have like or improvised music, like an aha moment that you said, like, shit, I want to play
No,
this music? Or
I've been playing improvised music since I was little, actually, because my father comes from quite a musical family. So my father's father he was a very accomplished trombone player and had the option to go on the road with boy, I can't remember if it's Tommy Dorsey or Glenn Miller. I think it was Tommy Dorsey, and at the time that was like a big job. And he didn't do that, and he raised a family instead, but he was still an outstanding musician, and there was always music in their house. And my father was a really great musician who decided also to not go into music, but still had lots of it going. So there was always music in our house, and my father would dink around on the piano or on the trumpet or the bass and improvise stuff, you know? So I
mm,
sort of started to get that idea of improvising from when I was really young and listening to jazz, limited scope, but listening to jazz from even the time I was 12 and then playing it in my teen years and then playing with musicians and going to jazz school basically. But not necessarily that I was going to be a jazz musician, but that I liked improvising, you know, that I understood the value of it. And so and then of course, if you move to New York and you play with some jazz musicians, one of the great seasonings of New York City is that if you get on the stage with musicians, hopefully the best thing that can happen is that you play with some unbelievable musicians and you get your ass kicked
yeah,
because then you grow, right? You get in there and you're the worst person on the stage and you walk away from that feeling a little beat up and then you learn from it. And hopefully the next time you come back, you're a little better,
you
you
had those
know,
moments. I mean, when did you move to New
over and
York?
over and over again, over and over and over again.
When did you move to New York, by the way? When was that?
1994.
Four. Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, over and over again, and even on the road and playing with people, and we don't have the same sort of mentorship that, for example, the
Yeah.
Miles Davis band had, or bands of that era, where musicians would be on tour with a creative band for a year.
Yeah.
Um, but there is still a mentoring opportunity, or to be a mentee, to learn from our leaders, and I learn from everybody that I play with.
Mm.
This last spring, I was playing duo concerts with Judy Collins. She's a very famous song stylist, and I played with a lot of singers, but I learned so much from Judy, just like playing with her and accompanying her. And everybody that I play with, I learned something new because it's a different musicianship
Setting.
that
Yeah.
they bring to it and experience. So I feel so grateful for all the opportunities and all the different things because I learned different things from Rod Stewart than I did from Harry Belafonte, than I
Oh,
did
sure. Yeah.
from Bill Evans, you know, and they all prepared me for the next thing in different ways, you know.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. It's like every gig is different, man. It depends on the audience and the setting. But yeah, I agree. I love this ass kicking. I mean, especially your generation coming to New York like in the 90s. I've spoken to so many guys who there was still so much happening because the elders were still alive, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
almost everyone from Alvin to, well, Art Blakey. Yeah, I think little bit earlier, but you know, all the greats were still alive from Brecker to. So
Yeah,
it must have been an amazing feeling to enter the town like as a youngster and
for sure, for sure. But you know, you can still find incredible musicians, and
yeah, yeah,
musicians have
yeah,
to make a living. So, um, I'd be on weddings, and I played a lot of weddings because that's how you pay your bills. And I'd be on weddings, and I'd be like, "That's so and so famous musician playing in the band with me," you know?
mm,
They're just here playing a wedding, and now some of those musicians are playing in Broadway shows, and you're encountering like this famous musician who's played with X, Y, and Z, and they're playing a Broadway show, you know?
yeah,
And there's an opportunity to talk with them and to learn from them, and you never know what's going to happen from that relationship.
yeah. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, I
It's
love
it's
it.
the beauty of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why playing with other human beings is so important, I
Oh
think.
man, yeah. That's why COVID was so heavy, man. You know,
Oh my God. Yeah.
we all done. I mean, at least I did so many of these long distance kind of recordings and projects, but after 2 years, I was like, shit, man, it's nice,
Yeah.
but you know, it's so nice to play a gig or something. It was
Yeah. No,
insane.
no,
Yeah,
I really lost my way during COVID. I was like, I don't know where I belong anymore. And
yeah, I can imagine.
I stopped being involved with music
Yeah.
almost completely during
Wow.
COVID. I was watching a lot of dumb YouTube, and I would ride my bike, and I'd learn to cook things, and I'd drink alcohol, and
Yeah,
you know, but I wasn't having a life of a musician, and it felt really, really bizarre.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it took me a while to get back, you know?
Yeah, it's just then you see like how important in jazz, especially this interaction and communication is
Absolutely.
on
Absolutely.
stage and you know off the stage actually also. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
important. Yeah. Uh, how did you? We mentioned Bill Evans before, and I checked some of the records I have you on, like this early mid '90s, late '90s, like Bill Evans, and there's like I love that record Low Blow by Victor Bailey.
Oh, wow.
I used to play that all the time. I don't know, such cool music there. How did you become part of the scene, like entering those groups? Like, what were the story? Who were the first people you connected with? And
Well, it's it's funny, you know, that the music business is all about word of mouth and reputation, right? So, um, I met uh, I met Zach Danziger pretty early in New York City.
mm,
And I'm not sure if I met Tim LaFave first or Zach Danziger. I definitely met Tim LaFave a week or two after being in New York City
well,
because he had played on a cruise ship with a friend of mine. And in fact, there's a funny story about Tim LaFave and Zach Danziger that Zach Danziger came on a cruise ship to play. And Zach Danziger is not somebody that would ever do this, but he was subbing for a friend of his, and he met Tim LaFave. And the story is that Zach heard Tim, who had no real designs on choosing a career in music, and said, "You belong in New York City. Go to New York City. Don't stay here. Go to New York City, and I'll help you out." And uh, so I'm not sure if Tim introduced me to Zach or if I met him through some other people, but fairly early on, I met Zach Danziger, and Zach recommended me to Chuck Loeb, the late great
mm,
Chuck
yeah,
Loeb
yeah. Oh
guitarist
wow, I
who
didn't know
played
that. Wow,
played
what's
with tons of jazz
yeah, yeah.
greats, and Chuck was doing sort of smooth jazz at the time, and I played a couple gigs with Chuck Loeb, with saxophonist Dave Mann, and with his brother Ned Mann, sometimes with I think Tim LaFave, and definitely with Zach Danziger some. And Chuck liked my playing a lot and recommended me to Bill Evans.
Mm,
And
okay,
I had been recommended to Bill by somebody else, but I think Bill didn't care. But I think when Chuck recommended me, it held more weight. So then Bill called me up and asked me to do something. It was a sort of situation where Bill's keyboard player at the time couldn't make it. That keyboard player's name is Charles Blenzig, and couldn't make a tour. And so Bill called me, and it was a last second thing. And I prepared. I worked really hard and prepared the music. And we first thing we did with Bill was go to Brazil
wow.
in the winter of '95.
Oh, that's
I think it
already
was
yeah.
'95 winter, and we went to Brazil, and we flew to Rio. And the day we got to Rio, I have an adjacent story which I think is just astounding to me because this person has been such an influence on my music. We got to Rio and we went with the promoter to the venue. The promoter said, "Oh, we were there a day early. You can go hear the artist who's playing at the venue if you want." There was a venue called Ritmo, in Brazil, in Rio. And we said, sure, let's go. We'll go hang out. We have the night off. Same time zone. We weren't tired. And there's Rosa Passos,
Yeah.
in her prime with her band. And she was killing it at this small club.
Well, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I've arrived. This is the greatest country ever. Brazil has such a music tradition and such beautiful music. And Rosa Passos has become a favorite of mine, and I've dove deep into her music. But hearing her just up close, she just happens to be playing at this club that we're playing the next day, was amazing. And then we had this run in Brazil, and then I did several more years with Bill. Lots of European tours with various bass players, various drummers. Japan once or twice, sometimes with Adam, sometimes with Nicky Maroc on guitar, sometimes with Mitch Stein on guitar, sometimes with Dean Brown on guitar.
Oh, really? With Dean as well? Oh, wow, man.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of mentors, I learned so much from Dean.
Really?
Both about on stage and off stage. And Dean really taught me about groove. Like, I think that there's a lot of what I understand, if I understand anything about groove, that I learned from Dean. Dean was... It's not his message, he didn't make it up, but Dean's message was always this sort of idea of simple and the one being funky, and there's so much to that. It's not like the little notes.
Yeah,
it's
the feel
and the big
yeah.
notes that make things funky.
Yeah. I love Dean, man. I did this talk with him like 1 year before he passed, and we talked like for 2 hours, and he was such a sweet guy, man. Like amazing. I'm such a great player.
Beautiful, amazing spirit, and beautiful player.
Such a nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nice. Yeah. I didn't know that he played with Bill on tour as well.
Yeah. I think he did a couple tours, and I played some gigs with Dean in his band.
Really? Oh, wow.
We used to play on the Upper West Side Lounge at this place. It was above the Triad Lounge. The Triad Lounge still exists, but it was some cafe above the Triad Lounge.
Beautiful.
And we just played Dean's funky music, and it was great. My wife would call him Mr. Funky. He's like,
so nice to watch him on stage, always like,
oh yeah.
From the audience, you're like, you can have, I watched him with Marcus Miller a couple of times, and you have like Marcus Miller, who's the main star, and I'm like watching Dean all the time, like whatever he's doing, like, man, that's so cool,
And Dean didn't do it for show. He was just completely body invested in the groove.
Yeah, and the faces, man, I love the faces. It's like,
it's like
he's like being like gravity is pulling him apart or something. It's like so cool, man.
Yeah.
Beautiful, yeah. Amazing that you got to play with him. I didn't know that. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. What about the same vein, like in the same? Where does Tain come into the equation for you? Because we're talking about fusion, kind of. I hate the word fusion, but it was kind of But then Tain's music, like that Bartok and that stuff, is completely different rhythmically and everything. Like, how did you connect with Tain?
I connected with Tain probably through Joe Locke, vibraphonist Joe Locke. Again, it's all reputation and word of mouth. My understanding is that the great George Whitty, who was playing with Joe quite a bit when he lived in New York, recommended me to Joe Locke to play these little gigs in town, because George couldn't do it, probably because he was playing with the Brecker Brothers at the time. And then I did this lengthy stint of gigs in Soho with Joe at this place called the Cavahas, which was unlikely for somebody like Joe Locke to be playing. But we played every, I want to say Wednesday, and we played all this music of Joe's, and just like groove-based music. And then I ended up working on a Joe record, and I ended up going to London with Joe and Jeff Watts. And we hit it off, like we had a good connection. I'd been a huge fan of his for years. I saw him, I actually interviewed him during COVID, and I saw him at the Great American Music Hall with Wynton in LA. Pretty sure it was Kenny Kirkland.
Oh, man.
And Charnett in not LA, in San Francisco. when I was like 12 or 13, and it was life changing. And I'm a former trumpet player,
Mm.
and just listening to jazz in that period, I was listening to Winton records, Think of One, and all those other records, and I knew Tain's playing very well, and so to get to play with him was like, oh my God, this feels familiar, but also I'm playing with this superhero of mine.
That's
So
right.
we connected, and we have a good connection with each other, and I feel like he respects me, and of course I love his playing and the open musician that he is. So
Yeah.
we've become good friends, and we've been doing some other gigs recently, and I think we're talking about more. So
Beautiful, man. Yeah.
yeah, he's a bright light.
Oh man,
That guy.
like that Winton and Brentford stuff, Black Coats and all that,
Oh,
like early mid 80s.
landmark, top 10.
Yeah, yeah, insane
Yeah,
drumming. Him and Smitty, like that stuff they did
yeah,
it,
yep,
there was really opening it up. I mean,
huge. Yeah.
huge players. Yeah. What about you as a band leader then? The Watershed project, like in the midst of all these Sidemen stuff, did you already lead bands like late 90s or like when does
Uh,
the band leading stuff start?
well, we had started Rudder just playing in town,
Already
and
then.
Tim and I put it together with Chris Cheek, and Keith Carlock had just moved to town, and we were playing with another drummer, Adrian Harpham, and Adrian was great, but we stopped sort of playing. I think we just lost some energy, and then some period of time passed, and Keith moved to town, and I was telling Tim about Keith even before they started playing with Wayne. I said this drummer friend of mine, because we went to college together. Keith and I played in
Ah,
like
really? I
dumb
didn't know that.
college bands
Okay.
together, and we played in a cover band together in college.
What was it?
Playing,
Like,
it was like we were playing groove stuff. It was a
okay.
horn band called Dallas Brass and Electric, and we played a lot of gigs together. And he's partly responsible for some hearing loss, probably in this year.
Can you imagine, man? Yeah.
'Cause I stood right next to him, and at that time he had a very high tuned piccolo snare, and it would just laser into my ear.
Yeah, all the time.
But I told Tim and Chris, and I was like, this great drummer friend of mine is moving to town. We should play with him. And we started trying things out, and it was just a fit. We hadn't been playing with this band. And then we liked it, and we decided we'd do some more gigs, and we came up with a title. I think Chris Cheek is the one who came up with that name of that band.
Rather, yeah.
And then, so yeah, that was kind of band leading, like with Tim. And then we connected with a woman who was associated with Till Bronner. She was Till Bronner's assistant at the time. She helped us book our first European tour.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
remember
mean,
you played. You played in Europe. We played on some of the same venues. Like I remember seeing Rudder, like the
oh yeah,
mid 2000s or something like that in
yeah,
Switzerland and
yeah,
stuff. Like shit, yeah, man.
yeah.
And I remember checking. I'm a huge Chris Cheek fan as well. So
Oh,
I love
me
hearing
too.
Chris in every context. Like
I love Chris.
especially in that group, because he's such a contrast to you guys
Yeah,
musically. Yet you kind of were like
yeah.
beautifully fit it in.
I love I love Chris. He's one of my very favorite musicians,
Yeah.
and maybe the most underrated,
Oh,
unsung musician there is.
absolutely. Yeah.
He's a world-class musician.
Yeah. And like I've talked to to his generation of players like Seamus and Blake and Mark Turner and everyone's like, yeah, Chris Cheek, man. He's like
Yeah,
Mark said, like when he was still finding his voice like on Berkeley, Chris was already there. Like that was Chris Cheek. Like he played, I don't know, If I Should Lose You or something. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
Chris Cheek.
yeah.
Like,
Chris
amazing.
is Chris is astounding.
Yeah,
He's astounding.
yeah. But what about Watershed? I mean, I loved it because it's like a slight departure of what you did, in a sense of Rudder. But how did that come about?
I felt a real self-pressure to make a trio record
Mm,
because, um, first of all, it's really challenging. I think that trio playing for a pianist is some of the most challenging
absolutely. Yeah.
playing there is if you're really doing it right. And I'm very much focused on composition, so I wanted to write an orchestral sort of texture for that album. And it's so challenging to me because there's nowhere to hide. You're not hiding behind another player. You're not hiding behind some effects. It's basically all about the piano.
Mhm.
So I wanted to bring that challenge for myself, and I wanted to prove to myself and maybe anybody else who cared that I could do it.
Yeah.
Um, and that record wasn't a big record, and not a lot of people know about it. And even my second trio record, not a lot of people know about it.
Mm.
But again, I felt like I wanted to do this thing, and it was important to me, and I feel proud of both of those records. And there may be another one. My trio record is one of thousands of trio records that exists in the since the year 2000, and there's no real motivation necessarily for agents to book my trio because I'm not super popular and I'm not 25 and I haven't just come off a drug habit or whatever. But
Yeah, you need
no,
that.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
disparaging.
I'm kidding. No, no.
No. I'm disparaging people and all these amazing trios that are
Yeah,
out there
yeah. I
playing
know what you mean.
are well deserving. But it's certainly competitive to do that. To go play with a trio, acoustic piano trio.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the audience doesn't even understand it anymore. Like there's a younger audience is not interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still feel very close to it, and I love the idea of trio music. And I'll
Yeah,
keep
it's
playing.
heavy. It must be, as a piano player, it must be heavy. I mean, like for me as a guitarist, if I do a solo concert, it's so freaking heavy, man, because you have the Joe Pass,
That's
and
right.
Ben Munder is all the time there, and I'm like, fuck, man, how can you play better than those guys on solo guitar? But kind of you have to forget, and piano is the same, you have the Keith Jarrett trio and Bill Evans trio and McCoy stuff and whatever, it's like, man, okay, I guess you have to do your own shit just to because you want to do it, right? So
That's right. And you want to do it, and I think so. Then you have to pursue
yeah,
your own voice,
yeah,
try to make your own sound. I mean, I can't play more or faster or better or more swinging. I'm not going to swing harder than Gene Harris. I'm not going to play faster or more swinging than Oscar Peterson. I'm not going to play more soulful than Herbie Hancock. I'm not going to play more melodic and harmonic complexities than Chick Corea or more melody than Keith Jarrett. Those people have done it, and those are the
yeah,
pinnacles. And all of these young, beautiful players, Aaron Parks, and all of these incredible musicians, I'm not going to outplay them. So I have to think of my own voice and my own concept. And I was just having this discussion with somebody the other day about art. Um, if we look at this as art, then ultimately artists have to make what they make for themselves.
yeah, absolutely.
You're the only arbiter of is it good enough and is it pleasing? And actually, David Bowie very famously said there's this interview online that you've probably seen in the 90s. He got the soul patch, and he's talking about working for other people. And he said, I think it's very dangerous for artists to work for other people. And he's not talking about taking side work. He's not talking about being a side musician or doing something that somebody else asks you to craft for them. He's talking about altering your art to please somebody else.
Yeah,
And he said,
yeah,
ultimately, I think that artists do their worst work when they respond to the peanut gallery. So along those lines, I try to take that to heart and not say, is this going to sell, or is this
yeah,
going
yeah.
to,
No, that's already lost.
or maybe my band could be more popular if I had like some young hot girls in it, and if I,
Yeah,
had people with longer names or whatever,
yeah, yeah. No, I know what
I
you mean
I
exactly.
have to
Yeah,
pursue what I'm
yeah,
hearing and just try to put it out there, and maybe somebody will like it. As a creative musician, as an artist of any sort, unless you're working in a very popular medium, I think the lines between what you do artistically and the lines between commerce are going to do this, and sometimes
mm,
they'll meet, sometimes they'll be completely opposed.
yeah,
So we hope that sometimes they intersect so we can make a living, or that somebody cares.
yeah. Especially compositionally, I think it's important, like because all the piano players, all you guys are up there. Like technically, it's like everyone played practice 10 hours or 8 hours. So technically it's like same level, but compositionally you really differ. When I listened, to Cobalt and all those tunes like on the last album, you have like your own style, like Post Road, and it's like some kind of a groove, but the melodies sound almost rubato over. Like that's like how I hear your compositional style for a trio. It's hard to describe for me, but it's like there's a tempo and a groove, but the melody sounds rubato-ish for me. I don't know. I was like, shit, man, that's your thing. I don't know why, but
Oh, well, thank you. I like to hope that I am making a style, coming up
yeah,
with a
yeah,
style
yeah,
that permeates
yeah,
the the different groups that I write for, the different work that I do. I
yeah,
mean, I guess that's the goal of any artist, right? To
yeah,
have some sort of through line
yeah.
to their work.
And do what you like you said. I mean, with Fork, it's completely different than the trio or whatever. So
Yeah,
it's important. Yeah. Uh,
yeah.
Kenny, you mentioned David before, and I wanted to ask you about your pop world excursion. When does that
Yeah.
start? And you've done so much, man. Like, and starting, I guess, with Rod Stewart, and then George Michael, and the pinnacle, I guess, David Bowie stuff. And uh, how does this story begin for you? Like entering that world and starting to work with these people.
Well, I like all kinds of music. I really do love all kinds of music, whether it's trio music or folk or rudder or rock music or pop music or rap or, you know, um, Brazilian music or anything. I mean, I really love all sorts of music and of course in New York City trying to make a living, connecting with people and somebody saying, well, you should try this guy, you should call this guy. And I was started doing more sort of studio sessions, recording
Mm,
sessions. And and I had recorded with, I had somehow gotten called to record on one of the Rod Stewart Standards records.
mm,
Actually, the story is that Clive Davis was overseeing these records because it was such a big potential franchise and moneymaker, and it turned out to be a huge moneymaker. He had his hand directly on it. He would come to the
mm,
sessions, and he was not. He was looking for something very specific from the piano players, and there are a lot of piano players in New York, but he had gone through a lot of the usual suspects, and people were like frustrated by what's he want. And those records are not, they're not adventurous. They're very, many jazz musicians loathe those records.
mm. Yeah,
But I started to
yeah,
understand what
yeah.
he wanted from that record, from that stuff. I was listening to it because the contractor who called me said, well, I got you on this session. We've been through this piano player and this piano player and this piano player. And I'm listening to the records and I'm like, okay, what's the consistency of the piano? What's the piano doing on these songs that have made the record? Okay, the piano's in the middle register. It doesn't play anything fast. No
Mm,
distracting high notes. Nothing flashy. Very simple harmonies. So I went into the session that way. I said, okay, I'm going to stay in my lane in the middle, play supportive, nothing fast, never going to play above the melody. And I survived. And then I got called for another session. Then I got called for another session. And then, coincidentally, not related, um, this contractor called me and left a message on my voice machine and said, um, hi, this blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering if you can do, actually, it might have actually been before I did the record. It might have happened first. I wonder if you can do these promotional dates for Rod Stewart. You have to do all of them. And a bassist in New York, Conrad Korsch, had given this contractor my name. Uh, and via Sean Pelton, the drummer,
mhm,
great drummer
sure.
for SNL. And again, it's word of mouth. And
Yeah.
so we went and did these promotional TV shows, and then it worked out really well. And actually, the last show, there's all these piano intros, and I somehow gained Rod Stewart's trust by playing these intros with him, and and I let him know that I was there for him. Like,
That's so
I hear
important. Yeah, yeah,
you,
yeah.
I can wait for you, I'm listening to you, I'm giving you notes. And he trusted me, and he ended up hiring me to be the pianist and musical director for the Great American Songbook based on
Wow.
that experience. So the path was that Conrad Korsch recommended me. We did the dates. Fast forward, Rod hired me for the tour. And then actually the funny thing is that Rod's manager came back to me and said, "Who should we get for the rhythm section?" I said, "Well, Conrad Korsch on bass,
Yeah,
because of
sure.
course,
Yeah.
it goes back the other way." Um, so then that Rod Stewart tour, and we did several years of that, and I did it basically until Rod stopped doing the standards,
But that
which
was
was
huge, right, for you? I mean, like that's like a big production. I mean,
it's
that's
a big production.
yeah,
It wasn't a musical challenge, and it wasn't in the end really musically engaging. But I did learn a lot.
yeah.
Again, I learned a lot from that tour. I learned a lot about interactions. I learned a lot about professional production. I learned a lot about timing from Rod. He was
Mm,
again a master showman. His timing,
sure.
the way he worked with the audience, the way he talked to the audience. I also learned something really important, which hadn't been slapped in my face quite the same way, is that outside of the jazz world, nobody gives a shit about jazz.
Yeah, that's a good statement, man.
I mean, I'm there. I am in my New York City bubble with all these musicians who love jazz, and everybody thinks it's the most important thing there is. And if you only hang out in New York City jazz clubs and you play jazz gigs, you think that the world lives and breathes and dies by jazz. But then you get on a big pop tour and you're playing for 15,000 people per night, and you're on there with a star, and you're in the big buses, and you've got this huge crew, and nobody cares.
Yeah,
And you're like, reality check. I need to bear that in mind and focus on, again, that tells you, okay, I need to work on the art that I care about, and it needs to be important for me because most of the world doesn't care.
yeah.
Most of
That's
the
a
world
small
doesn't
thing.
care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Most of the world won't hear my jazz music, you know, just
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going to,
yeah.
and not going to care about hearing it. So that was a great eye opener for me. And it was a little depressing at first. And I said, what can I learn from this? How can I make this, how can I make myself a better musician out of this? How can I learn to behave better in those social situations amongst people who don't care about jazz? Don't talk about your jazz with a bunch of people who don't care unless you just want to be ostracized. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
you know?
That's so cool. Yeah. It's such an ego killer as well, right? Right,
It
right.
is, yeah, and there's
In a
something
good
healthy in
sense. I
that.
mean, yeah, it's
There's something
unhealthy. Yeah,
healthy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that producer who I'd worked on those first Rod Stewart sessions with was Phil Ramone, the famed Phil Ramone.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
And I ended up working with Phil on a number of other projects. And Phil would come to my apartment and we'd work on things. And record budgets had collapsed, because the record business was falling apart. And so in order for Phil to make the money that Phil needed to make, we weren't working in big studios. We'd work in my apartment. We
Oh,
worked on
wow.
an
Okay.
Australian film
It's amazing.
almost entirely in my apartment. And this chair, so I have this chair and I had only one. And I said, okay, I bought this chair, even though it's expensive, because I'm sitting in it all day at the computer working on production stuff. Phil's coming, I better get him one. I can't be sitting in this chair and having Phil in like some hard wooden chair that we bought because we can't afford any other chairs. So, but he would come over and fast forward to Phil having worked on an album for George Michael called Songs from the Last Century.
Hmm.
George was planning to make this tour with an orchestra. And he sounded Phil about producing the album, about being involved. And Phil was talking about it because Phil was sort of excited about it, And we'd be working on something else, and he'd be at my apartment. He's talking about this, and I said, I just told him right then because I said I have to throw my hat in the ring, otherwise I'm going to kill myself. Phil, I humbly submit that I could do the job of musical director for this. I said I've done it with Rod Stewart. I did it with so and so. I have the experience. I did arranging for Rod. And so Phil put me forward for it to George. George didn't know who I was. It was all word of mouth. But Phil Ramone saying, "This is your guy," was it.
So important.
And the quartet was New York musicians. It was great guitarist Ben Butler, who's gone on now. He's playing with Sting's thing. Mark McLean, who plays a lot of jazz stuff, and David Fink, who's like
yeah, sure, David.
One of the old guard, one of the great bass players in New York. So it was the four of us plus some of George's other musicians, and a 50-piece orchestra.
That's a big one, man.
Yeah.
Wow. And you did that then Symphonica album, right? I mean,
Symphonica. We did
that's a
Symphonica
nice record,
album,
actually, yeah.
and we did 2 years of European touring. Not 2 years, but 2, multi-month arena tours. And it was amazing,
Man, yeah.
And George was amazing, and he could really sing.
Yeah.
Astounding singer.
Yeah. Man. The British singers love you, man. Loved you.
Yeah.
I can never look at it. No, he was a great singer, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And so the David Bowie connection then comes from all of that, like Phil Ramones, or was there another?
No, the David Bowie connection was completely different.
Okay.
I had met Lucy Woodward, is a great singer.
Yeah.
And she and I played in a wedding band. Again, going back to the wedding bands. So she and I played in a wedding band, and that wedding band rhythm section was Brian Delaney, who's an amazing drummer, played with tons of people, including in New York Dolls and all these other people, and Pete McCann on guitar. Who's
I love Pete, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tim LaFave and me. That was the rhythm section of this band. And one of the singers was a young blonde singer named Lucy Woodward. And actually, she went by Lisa Woodward back then. But Lucy was having her band starting, and Lucy and I met back then on a wedding. Like, hey, singer, hey, piano player, will you guys play some songs together? And we ended up just playing duo that you play on the breaks while they're bringing salad out. And we hit it off. So fast forward to some years later, and I'm playing in Lucy's band, and she does a band for Verve, or does a record for Verve, I think Forecast, Tony Visconti producing.
Okay.
And it was kind of a jazzy record. Frank Vignola played guitar. He's an incredible gypsy jazz guitarist. Yeah. And Brian Delaney, and I don't remember who played bass. I don't think it was Tim LaFave. It was somebody else. And so we're in the studio with Tony, and Tony and I kind of hit it off, and he asked me to do something else. And then he called me one day and he said, hey, are you around these 2 weeks in April? And I said, I'm not sure. I have some blah, blah, blah. He said, you're going to want to be around for this. I didn't really think about it at all, because we were keeping top secret. Everything was top secret. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to keep those weeks clear. I mean, I didn't have anything major. I didn't have a tour, but I might have had some little gigs. Sure. And then they sent me a non-disclosure thing, and they're like, you won't talk about this. And then I go to the studio, and it's Tony Visconti, Mario McNulty, and David Bowie.
Yeah, that's a big one, man.
Yeah, and my very first day I played on Where Are We Now?
Yeah.
I played piano on Where Are We Now?
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. And then eventually, fast forward to a couple more sessions, and we had a little session at Tony Visconti's studio space, and David and I were hitting it off, and I was coming up with little sounds, and we were watching funny videos. He was very funny. And that was for the extended part of the next day. And his manager reached out to me a year or two later. I think it was a year later, because this was, over multiple years, and said, can you come to my office? I said, okay. I thought, well, maybe there's a David tour or something, or maybe, who knows. But I wanted to go to his office no matter what. And he said, David's working on a musical, and he thinks you're the guy to do it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, man, come on.
What?
That's insane, yeah.
Of course, yes. So we were off and running. That was 2014.
Wow. That's insane, yeah. Just like, that's New York for you. I mean...
Yeah, it's all relationships, right?
Yeah.
And And the thing I learned, especially from the Rod Stewart thing, but from other gigs, is that I think if you show up to a job makes it sound so cheap, but if you show up to a musical situation and you give your absolute best, and you give your absolute best in the spirit of the integrity of the thing that you're doing. So, for example, when I was on George Michael, I was 100% about that music and 100% about what's George want and what's the music need. When I was on, other jazz settings, I was 100% about that, or pop settings or pop recording or a film score. And as long as you do that, first of all, you run the chance of the fact that maybe the people you're working for have no idea that you do anything else, and that's a wonderful situation. Yeah. And actually, this contractor who called me, she and I are good friends. We just spoke today. She called me to play on those Rod Stewart records, and she's called me to play on other recordings and stuff over the years, and she was Phil Ramone's right-hand person for many years. And she called me like 2-3 years ago, and she said, I need a jazz pianist to play this, with this singer and blah, blah, blah. It's got to be real jazz pianist. I said, I play jazz. She said, you do?
Shit, man.
That was the greatest thing. I was like, wow, you don't know.
That's fantastic, actually, yeah.
I think that's something that I'm very proud of, that she had no idea.
Yeah.
Because that means that I'd done something right. There was no call for me to fly my jazz flag around her, and it's no call for me to fly my pop flag around jazz musicians, because it's not warranted.
Yeah.
And then it just feels braggy and it distracts from the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so true, man, what you're saying. It's a team sport anyway, right? Otherwise, you should not join that team, whatever you're playing for.
Yeah. And it took me, I've not always been that person, and I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to be a better person, trying to be a better social interactor,
I can imagine. Yeah.
And it takes years, and I'm still working on it.
I remember I did some pop gigs like 25 years ago, and I sucked, man, because I was just pushing that jazz thing through shit, I'm above you, I know shit about harmony and triads and what I can do. And
that's
now
right.
I look at it back and I'm like, fuck, man, you should have just played that thing, they called you because, I don't know, they liked what you did or someone recommended you, and I'm there pushing my own ego and man,
It was me too. I was a jazz snob at one point, and I was not really convinced about the authenticity of other styles. And then I learned that, no, actually, the simplest rock has a discipline all its own.
Absolutely.
And, these musics are special, and the people who are really good at it are really good for a reason.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny, that we all go through these same stages. Now I don't mind playing a G chord on guitar.
Yeah.
If a situation comes, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that for.
And then you're like, how can I make it feel great, and how can I get the best tone possible? You know,
or the feel, or what you know, Bill Frisell. I remember seeing Bill Frisell 20 years ago, and he on a concert in my jazz snob period, but I love Bill. And he played a G chord several times on that gig, an E minor, really basic. I was like, man, that's amazing. And I came home, played the same G chord. It sucked, it was it was like a G chord, because if Frizzell plays a G chord, it's it's and then I was like, shit, man, okay, you have to work on the G chord, and stuff like that. So it's bizarre. These things are so funny, man. Yeah, that we go through. But beautiful, that you shared some of this stuff. I love it. Nice. Henry, I just wanted to ask you one more thing, not to take too much of your time, but where does then the movie soundtracks come in also? Because then is that also that part of you, which is, I guess, quite a lot of time-consuming stuff.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to play on some soundtracks, and then I became interested in scoring. And I think at some point, anybody who's a composer in jazz especially starts to have some kind of interest in scoring as a composition. and that was a big learning process. I mean, playing on film scores is great. They're ultimately just sessions, and you try to focus on what the session needs. And I've been fortunate to play on some really cool sessions with scores. But the scoring thing, I met a score composer through bassist Chris Terry, because I did a number of Canadian tours with Chris Terry.
Okay, I love Chris. Yeah.
I met the score composer who was engineering for Chris Terry, and he was a really nice guy, this Canadian guy, and I sort of put it out there. I said, look, I'm a composer, and I have some production skills, and I have equipment, and if you ever need anything, anything at all, just let me know. I'm happy to help. I was sort of trying to see if I could make my way in, and he sent me something, and I killed myself trying to do what he asked. It was like a tiny thing, and he liked it, and then he started to give me a little more. And then I learned, first of all, the idea of ghostwriting, which is very commonplace for big TV and film, where busy composers will hire help. And sometimes they hire help in that hired help looks like the person does all the work. And I don't think that that's abusive after a fashion. You get paid, the Hollywood way of doing it, from my understanding, or at least it was then, is that you get paid a certain amount per minute, a certain, monetary amount per minute. Now a minute could be easier, a minute could be really challenging. But I ended up doing a lot of scoring under this guy, and I was sort of trying to learn the craft, because it's a completely different craft, and it's completely different from writing pure music, where you sit down, you're going to write a song. And some musicians have this idea about scoring, like, oh, I love John Williams themes, so I want to be a score composer just like that. No, most of scoring is like a note, somebody turns their head, something that reacts. It might be a sound, or it might be a pause. And I really had to learn all that. And this guy that I worked for taught me so much. He taught me about themes. He taught me about pacing. He also taught me about the thankless nature of scoring, where really you could be working for people who have no idea. Like, you're the person who knows most about music, and they might not have any idea about how the music works, but they know what their picture needs. So the whole thing with the music is to serve the picture. The music has to be subservient to the picture. It has to serve the picture. And I learned so much in that situation, and I started to get pretty good at it. And I bought a lot of sample libraries, and I started to get fast, and I started to get, so that I could do it comprehensively. I started to understand more about what the process needed. This is over a couple years. I was pretty convinced that I would move to LA and pursue scoring.
Oh, wow, really? Interesting.
Yeah, at one point, because I said, this has a future. If you get good at it, if you work hard at it, you can make a real living, you can eke out something out of it. And I can do it with all this technology that I've learned, because I got quite fast with Logic and all the tools, and I have a lot of keyboards, and I wrote entire shows under this guy. I wrote a 2-hour miniseries and another something else. And this is commonplace. This is no secret, I don't think. But eventually I started to realize that all this music was mostly I'm by myself, Until you get to a picture that has a lot of budget, you don't get the opportunity to hire in a bunch of musicians. A lot of scores are like, okay, here's finite amount of money, turn in this scores, turn in 70 minutes of music.
Yeah.
And you know how long that's going to take, plus all the director's notes and all the revisions and everything. There's no money left to hire anybody. In fact, a lot of times hiring musicians will just slow you down. You can't get the stuff done in time. So I'm doing all this music by myself, and some of it not musically satisfying. And I remember a job that I'd signed on to do. It was an animated job, and it was a lot of work. But I was on a schedule, and I'm just grinding away. I'm cranking away at this stuff in our little East Village apartment. And I had taken a Pete McCann gig at the 55 bar. And I forgot about it. and I'm on this schedule and I'm working every day, and composers are like, all right, I'm going to write 3 minutes today, or 3 minutes a day, or 2 minutes a day, and I'm going to take this day of break. And 2 minutes might be hours to do, planning it all out, trying to figure out what the picture needs, writing different versions. But it's definitely, you have to be on a schedule. And I said, oh shit, I have this Pete gig, and I'm mad at myself that I took this gig. I'm like, this is going to disrupt my schedule. I'm going to have to look at this music. And I remember walking out the door with my pedal bag. I had a pedal bag because I was going to play the Rhodes at the 55 bar. And I'm like stomping out the door, all mad at myself. I'm just gig, and I'm just going to get this gig over with and come back and get back to work on this score. And then I went to the gig, and I had more fun with music than I'd had in months.
Sure.
It was just an eye-opener for me. I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know how I'm kidding myself. I went and played some creative music with other live musicians. It was completely reactive. And that was the beginning of the end for me. And I didn't pursue any more scoring. And I sort of, I backed away from that stuff. And I don't have any regrets about what I learned, because I learned a lot about arranging. It brought insights into how I participate in film scores now. And I've actually participated in a couple on-camera roles as a musician.
Really?
And I understand now better how to serve the picture from my experience of scoring. Again, it's learning from that.
Yeah.
And even teaching, because I like to teach when I'm touring. I like to teach master classes and talking to people, and they're like, I want to score. I'm like, do you know what that means? Do you really know what that means? And learning that stuff firsthand has been invaluable to me.
Yeah. So important.
So that was my big dive into scoring.
Interesting,
and
man.
I don't regret it. I'm proud of the work that I did. And I'm glad that Pete McCann allowed me to discover this thing about myself that could have ended in years of misery and me eventually reconciling with it.
Yeah. Shit, man. Yeah. No, it's a hard job. I mean, to get to the Hans Zimmer level or whatever, I mean, it takes years.
But even that, I interviewed Theodore Shapiro during the pandemic. Teddy Shapiro he wrote Zoolander 2. He wrote The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. He wrote, what's the movie with Bryan Cranston about Trumbo? He wrote the score for Trumbo. And most famously and most recently, Severance. That's all his music.
Okay. Oh,
he wrote the theme and everything. He's a brilliant composer. And I interviewed him during the pandemic, part of my saving myself from...
Oh, I love the Jerry Hay interview, man. That's the only interview by Jerry, because I love this guy. He's done like 6 million albums. So
yeah,
thanks for doing that one, actually. So
yeah, I called him up before. I said, "Can I ask this question?" I was asking the budget question about Michael Jackson, But we have the dorky Hay family stuff. But so I interviewed Teddy Shapiro, and I asked this question about pure music. Sometimes that term is used, or music that's not attached to a picture, and if he liked to do that. And he said no. He said he much prefers the partnership with the director, and for the way that he works, it absolutely works. And I understand, hearing him say that, I understand his perspective, and I completely respect it, and he flourishes in that situation, obviously.
Yeah.
He's one of the most successful composers today, and he's such a lovely guy and so intelligent.
I have to check the interview.
Yeah, check that interview. I had longer hair back then, but
yeah, I know, I remember.
But he was fantastic, and he's still that sort of even-keeled, thoughtful score composer, and he's right where he needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as long as you're happy in whatever you're doing, that's the most important in the end.
Right?
I mean.
Yeah, because none of us is going to get super rich or at all rich from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know too much about triads and altered chords. And I'm just kidding.
What's that joke about? There's a joke about what's the difference between a jazz guitarist and a rock guitarist? A jazz guitarist plays 10,000 chords for 3 people. A rock guitarist plays 3 chords for 10,000 people.
Kind of true, actually. Adam Rogers is maybe the exception, and someone else.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but cool. Henry, what's still on the schedule for you for this year, like touring wise? Are you coming to Europe, by the way? Any plans with some project or?
Yeah, Fork will be in Europe in the second half of April.
Oh, beautiful.
I just finished working with director Ivo van Hove on a project in Bochum, Germany for the Ruhr Festival. So I arranged and orchestrated, and then was the musical director for 30 pieces of music for a theater piece called I Did It My Way, which involves music of Frank Sinatra and music of Simone, and we did 10 public performances. There is another theater production next year at Ruhr, and I'm also involved in that.
Beautiful, man.
That will take some of my time. There will be some touring next year that I don't know about yet because there's still some planning. But that Fork tour will happen in the latter half of
Oh, fantastic. I'll try
April.
to catch you guys somewhere.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. Oh, beautiful. You're busy. That's good. That's a good sign.
Trying to
Fantastic.
trying to keep the lights on and trying to stay interested.
Yeah. Cool, man. I'll leave you a nice afternoon now. And what is it? Sunday. Shit, I'm not going.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing some of these thoughts, man. And if you're in Europe, drop me a line, man, and we'll get together for a beer or whatever. And
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you so much for your intelligent thoughts and time today.
yeah, thank you too for sharing some of this. So
All right.
stay
Thanks.
strong, man. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.